Anthony Fluffy Hernandez just had the most dominant performance of 2025 so far for the UFC. And that was in the UFC Vegas 109 main event where he would absolutely dismantle Roman Dolidze and take the will out of him from pillar to post up until the fourth round submission finish via rear naked choke where he would just toss Roman Dolidze to the ground. Anthony Hernandez now finds himself on the second longest win streak in the middleweight division right now, only behind the current champion, that is Dricus du Plessis at 9. Anthony now sits at 8. And 6 of those 8 wins have been by way of stoppage, with 4 submissions and 2 knockouts. And I'm going to tell you right now, after this performance in the showcase that he put on, Anthony Fluffy Hernandez absolutely launched himself into title contention and grew his popularity in leaps and bounds post-fight. This man is not afraid to welcome any and all fighters into that octagon to stand across the cage from him. He said he will beat absolutely everyone in this division if that's what it takes to get a middleweight championship fight. But after this one, my man only needs one more, in my opinion, before he's standing across the cage from whoever the middleweight champion may be. He was ranked number 10 heading into this bout, and his opponent Roman Dolidze, who was on a 3-fight win streak, was sitting at number 9. And come Tuesday morning, they will at minimum swap places from 10 to 9 and vice versa, but I wouldn't be surprised if Hernandez slides up a few more spots after this dominant performance. Currently sitting above Anthony outside of Roman is Jared Cannonier, the former title challenger, who has a fight this upcoming weekend on the very same card that the middleweight title is being defended. He's taking on Michael Venom Page. Robert Whitaker, who's coming off of a loss, now 2 in a row technically, to Khamzat Chimaev and Reinier de Ridder just a few weeks ago. We have Caio Borralho at number 6, who is currently slated to take on the number 1 ranked Nassourdine Imavov on September 6th in the UFC Paris main event. Reinier de Ridder at number 5, who is 4-0 in the UFC and coming off of that win over Robert Whitaker. Israel Adesanya, the former 2-time champion, at number 4. Number 3 is the undefeated Khamzat Chimaev, challenging for the middleweight title 1 week after this Hernandez victory against the champion Dricus du Plessis at UFC 319. And at number 2 is the former champion Sean Strickland. And I'm telling you, the way that Anthony performed in this one against Dolidze, he looked as though he is the boogeyman type of fighter for this middleweight division, even though Khamzat Chimaev says that he is, and Dricus du Plessis said that he is. So maybe we'll find out who the true boogeyman is within 1 week of each other, because Anthony just looked like damn one at UFC Vegas 109, and if Khamzat or Dricus have a dull performance next week, Anthony's going to take that crown. Unfortunately, in my opinion, I don't believe that Anthony Hernandez will get the next championship fight and face the winner of Dricus versus Khamzat, and that's simply because if Dricus loses, he may be able to squeeze his way into getting a rematch since he's defended the belt twice, and even if he can't, there is a very much so number 1 contendership confirmed bout just a few weeks later in that aforementioned Imavov versus Borralho main event. So there are a few different routes that we could take with Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, and I believe that any one of them, should he beat whoever stands across from him and make his win streak 9, will earn him a championship fight regardless. He could take on the loser of the championship bout between DDP and Khamzat. He could take on the loser of Imavov versus Borralho. He could take on a former champion like Sean Strickland or Israel Adesanya, either or he could take on someone else that is surging alongside him at the same time in Reinier de Ridder, who sits at number 5. And when I posed the question on X, Reinier de Ridder is the answer that got the most amount of votes and the highest percentage. And I absolutely would not say no to that being a 5-round main event or a featured bout on a pay-per-view. It would be utter chaos for as long as we got to see it. And honestly, after this performance, Anthony Hernandez versus RDR, DDP, or Khamzat Chimaev, any of those 3 would be nothing short of beautiful chaos. However, I also think it's realistic if we don't see RDR versus Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, which I agree with the poll results is probably the most likely route to take. We could also see where RDR takes on Adesanya or Strickland, and then whoever he doesn't take on, Anthony Hernandez can fight. Middleweight is hotter right now than it has probably ever been in its entire history in the UFC. When you have guys like Imavov, who's on a huge win streak, Caio Borralho, who's on a 7-fight win streak and hasn't lost in the UFC, Khamzat Chimaev, the undefeated phenom that he is, Reinier de Ridder, the former 2-weight world champion and 1, going 4-0 since debuting in the UFC last November. This is an awesome time to be a fan of the 185-pound division, which I have been for years and years because my all-time favorite fighter was the greatest middleweight to ever live, live in Anderson the Spider Silva, and man, I hope he's proud of the division that he built and where it is now in 2025. The modern day era of mixed martial arts is here to stay. So one, let me know down in the comments your takeaways from this performance from Anthony Hernandez, and if you agree with me in saying that it was the best performance from a fighter so far in 2025. And more importantly, let me know what you think should be next for Anthony Hernandez. Is it a title shot? Can he jump over every single other person ahead of him? Or does he get himself involved with all of those numerous circumstances that I listed, whether that be the loser of the title fight, the loser of the number one contender fight, a former champion like Strickland or Adesanya, or the surging Renier de Ritter? Honestly, I don't think that you can go wrong, and regardless, as I already said, he should be next for a championship fight if he wins his next fight, no matter who it is. Steve Erceg more than likely just earned the most important victory of his entire professional career, and that was at UFC Vegas 109 in the co-main event where he got the decision win over Osbourne, but boy, it did not come easy, because my man Astro Boy damn near got his head knocked off his shoulders in round number 1 in what would have been the biggest win for Osbourne's entire career. However, Erceg was able to weather the storm, get to the stool in between rounds 1 and 2, and really pick up the pace in those last 2 rounds, ultimately earning the 29-28 unanimous decision victory, meaning that he ended his 3-fight losing streak to Brandon Moreno, Kai of France, and Alexandre Pantoja between May of last year and March of this year. And he is also able to hold his top 10 spot in the flyweight division as well. And after having 7 fights already since debuting in the promotion in June of 2023, he is undoubtedly one of the most active fighters in the flyweight division and in the entire UFC. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets one more in before the end of 2025 to try and inch his way closer back into title relevancy heading into the new year. In terms of who he could fight, I think there are definitely a couple of reasonable options out there. Someone like an Asu Amabayev, who's coming off of a victory against a short notice opponent a few weeks ago. I think a Manel Kape versus Steve Erceg fight has a 5-round main event written all over it. That would be a very intriguing bout. Or a fight that would be the most fun and make the most sense, in my opinion, would be him versus the former title challenger, Brandon Raw Dog Royval. We saw him lose to Joshua Van in June in one of the best fights of the year, and we of course know that he also lost his title opportunity to Alexandre Pantoja, the same champion that defended against Steve Erceg in his opportunity. I'd be curious to hear what you thought of Steve Erceg in this outing. What did you make of him getting rocked and knocked down early in round 1, weathering the storm and coming back? Do you have worries for him moving forward in this division? And let me know who you think he should fight next as well. Iasmin Lucindo, at just 23 years of age, has already had 7 fights in the UFC and garnered a record of 5-2 in those 7, and that now includes the longtime veteran and number 12 ranked strawweight in the world, Angela Hill. Lucindo was able to earn a unanimous decision hard-fought victory in this one at UFC Vegas 109, bounced back from her loss to Amanda Lemos, the former title challenger, earlier this year, and has now won 5 of her last 6 bouts since losing her debut fight to Iasmin Uruguay in August of 2022. And we all should remember how insane that fight was. Lucindo currently finds herself at number 8 in the strawweight division, and with the title picture kind of in a gray area up in lingo right now, being that we don't really know what is next for the champion in Zhang Weili, Lucindo could be in a spot where she's just 1 or 2 wins away from a title shot in her own right. Her training partner, Virna Jandiroba, was there at UFC Vegas 109, and they said in the post-fight interview that she is ready to take on Zhang Weili, and we've even heard of her and Mackenzie Dern going back and forth with one another, saying that's the fight they want. And I still feel like all signs are pointing toward the super fight between Weili and Valentina, but it's really been radio silent on that topic from the UFC. There haven't even been a lot of questions asked about it. But I think it's possible that Lucindo could be taking on someone like a Yan Xiaonan, who, at least if I'm remembering correctly, isn't currently slated to fight right now, because we know that Tatiana Suarez and Amanda Lemos are fighting at Noche UFC next month. She's likely not going to fight her training partner Virna Jandiroba. So yeah, it's either Yan Xiaonan or Mackenzie Dern. Those are kind of the only 2 other women ahead of her, outside of maybe a Tabitha Ricci as well. Christian Leroy Duncan had his best performance in the UFC so far through his 6 UFC fights, and that was in a knockout victory effort against Eryk Anders, the longtime UFC veteran. The former Alabama football player had not been knocked out since 2018, and Christian Leroy Duncan put that streak to bed with a brutal spinning back elbow followed up by punches. CLD is now 12-2, and he has finished 10 of those 12 victories with 9 knockouts and 1 submission. He's 30 years old, right in his prime, and in this middleweight division that is red hot right now, he is someone right on the outside looking into the top 15. And I think he has a very high high ceiling in this middleweight division. We were just kind of waiting on that big performance, and that is exactly what this was against Anders. Elijah Smith probably had the most brutal knockout of 2025 so far because he got a knockout slam victory against Toshiomi Kazama in round number 1. Elijah Smith is now 9-1 in his professional career and is still just 22 years old. He's finished 6 of his 9 wins with 5 knockouts and 1 submission, and he's now 2-0 in the UFC, coming off of his Contender Series appearance last September. And it's worth noting that he made his UFC debut in February against a longtime veteran of professional fighting and in the UFC 2 stints, as a matter of fact, and Vince Morales, where he got a decision win. He obviously has a long time to go and build at just 22 years old, but this type of performance and this type of fighter in Smith just goes to show you how insane 135 pounds is across the board. Joselyne Edwards may just be the hottest fighter going in the women's bantamweight division right now outside of the champion, that is Kayla Harrison, because she just picked up her 3rd straight win, all 3 of them by way of stoppage. And this most recent one comes against Priscila Cachoeira, the zombie girl, and Joselyne made her look anything but that by knocking her out with a 1-punch hook that sent her down to the canvas. Joselyne started her UFC career 4-4 between January of 2021, her debut, and her fight with fellow prospect at bantamweight and number 7 ranked Ailin Perez in June of 2024, but since then, the win streak has begun, all by way of finish, and she's definitely entering her prime right now at 29 years old. It's clear as day that the improvements that she's making in the gym are paying dividends in the octagon. I'm actually very excited to see what Joselyne Edwards' next fight will be and for what her potential could hold now moving forward in this bantamweight division, because her ceiling in 2025 is much higher than it was just as little as 1 year ago. And this is also a good thing because the women's bantamweight division has been so stale for so long, but now it seems to be on an upward trend. We have a new champion in Kayla Harrison. We have the potential return with Amanda Nunes. Norma Dumont and Raquel Pennington were slated to face one another, even though that fight may or may not be happening now. Ailin Perez, who is sitting at number 7 and who we previously discussed is on a big win streak. Macy Chiasson is taking on Yana Santos. And Ketlin Vieira is coming off of a victory over Macy Chiasson. So there are a lot of moving pieces right now at 135 pounds, and that is desperately what this division needed, and now Joselyne Edwards is very much a part of that discussion as well. And last but not least, the doctor, Uros Medic, sent Gilbert Urbina to the Shadow Realm, needing a doctor in his own right after a knockout in just 1 minute and 3 seconds. The 32-year-old Medic is now 11-3 and kept his 100% finish rate intact, now 9 knockouts and 2 submissions to his name. As a matter of fact, even when Uros is fighting and losing, he's not even going to the scorecards because he's been finished in all 3 of his losses. The man is kill or be killed, therefore he is must-watch TV anytime he's slated to fight. So that is it for the UFC Vegas 109 recap. Thank you for bearing with me and my lack of voice right now. Hopefully it'll be better come next weekend for the pay-per-view preview. But I hope you all enjoyed this recap, and if you did, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new, because we are on the road to reaching 1,000 subscribers before the end of 2025, and any and all support is greatly appreciated. Alongside with my recaps of the most meaningful results from every card, I also break down and discuss the biggest and best fights and storylines heading into each card, and I give my thoughts and opinions on MMA news and fight announcements. You can join the community on social media at Verbal Spar MMA on X, Instagram, and TikTok, and follow on your favorite audio listening platforms such as Spotify and Apple, where every Monday and Friday podcast episodes release there. Have a great week, and I will see you all in the next video.